You are listening to the Maple Footy Podcast. This is the unofficial football podcast of the North. I'm your host, Sam Little. Find me at official Sam Little on Instagram. There's nothing left to say except for sit back, enjoy, and welcome to the show.
Hello, yes, welcome back to the Maple Footy Podcast, the mapliest, the footiest, the most unofficial football podcast that there is. And yeah, obviously, Premier League recap is coming up very shortly. But first, let me remind you, just in case, it's a not so subtle, more of an in-your-face reminder that the Maple Footy Podcast is up everywhere you do get your podcasts: Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon, Deezer, Pandora, all that. I can't I don't have the list on me right now of all the places it's up, but it is in fact up everywhere. So you can by all means continue listening to it on YouTube if that's how you prefer. But if you want a more per se authentic podcast experience, yes, it is up everywhere. So definitely go check it out if you would like. And yeah, just appreciate you for listening. So thank you so much. And now into the Maple Start, as we always do on the Maple Footy Podcast. So obviously with the transfer window happening, it's actually closing the day that I'm recording this. So by the time this episode goes up, it will be closed for most clubs, European clubs that is. I believe it'll still be open in the MLS and CPL, I believe. So obviously with transfer windows comes transfer moves. And there was a good few. Raheem Edwards, yeah, former TFC boy, former Montreal boy as well. He's heading over to the New York Red Bulls. I thought he had a very good season with Montreal last time out. I don't know why they didn't re-sign him. Maybe it was a salary cap thing. Maybe they just thought it was time to let him go. I don't know. But regardless, I think it's a good pickup for the Red Bulls. I think he'll do very well there. He's shown time and time again he's a great MLS asset to have. I think he's got a lot of different tricks in his bag. So yeah, definitely I think it's a very good move for him and the club. So nothing but the best for him, obviously. Some more transfer news. Jay Chapman, yes, Jay Chapman, formerly of TFC, has joined Detroit City in the USL. I'm saying this because I own a Chapman jersey. I met him. I liked him when he was with TFC and have been rooting him on since he has departed the club. He's made quite the career in the USL, has been a very good player in those teams. So definitely hoping that he can do the same for Detroit. And another Forge player has left the club, Malik Oluwabi Belawu. He has left for Chesterfield in England, reportedly from James Sharman, that is. So we'll see. Wait until Forge maybe confirms it, but it seems like it is a done deal. James Sharman usually isn't wrong about these things. So yeah, we'll see. We'll kind of wait and see on that one, but definitely looks like he could be on his way out of Forge, which personally I feel like is a shame for Forge because he has been a very good player for them. But of course, when a team in England kind of comes calling for you, it's kind of hard to say no. So I don't blame him. Just kind of biasly, I'm kind of like, damn, that kind of sucks that we're losing them. But, you know, like I said, hard to say no. So, yeah, wishing those guys the absolute best of luck. Tajon Buchanan did, in fact, get his move. A lot of teams were in on him. It is Villarreal that puts pen to paper. It is a loan deal for the rest of the season, but there's a 13 million, I believe. It was like 13 or 14 million euro buy option at the end of the season if they so feel like they want to trigger it. So hopefully he does very well there, and whether it gets triggered or maybe he goes back to Inter and gets a real opportunity there, only time will tell. But I really do hope that he really lights it up at Villarreal. He needs it. He needs the playing time, and he just needs consistent minutes. So that hopefully that is what he gets there, and he can show everyone why he's that guy. Ali Ahmed, of course, still has that interest that I mentioned many podcasts ago, but it was reignited over this transfer window. It doesn't look like it will be happening this transfer window, but teams in England, Germany, and Italy are all reportedly looking at him. So once again, I don't think it's going to happen this window, but definitely something to watch going into the next half of the European season and the first half of the MLS season, if he continues to kind of kick on with the form that he had last time out, I wouldn't be surprised to see him still linked with and potentially getting one of those moves. So, like I said, only time will tell, but you never know, right? Another transfer, not technically confirmed just yet, but it got the Fabrizio Romano "here we go," and those, as you probably well know, aren't usually wrong. Obviously, still a chance that does not happen, but Ishmael Kone looking like he's going to Stade Rennes. Not French. I apologize if I did mispronounce that. But yeah, I think this is a good move for him. He needs to play. I don't know why he's not playing at Marseille. I know last episode I had said, maybe it was attitude problems, but even that didn't really make sense because he wasn't training for a long time due to injury. And then on the field, he never got a shot to really show if he could do it or not, so it's not really performance-based, so I don't really know what the reasoning is, but regardless, it's a loan deal. I believe there's a buy option in that one too, much like the Buchanan one, so once again, if he impresses, we could be seeing him switching clubs again this summer, and I do think this is a mistake by Marseille. I really, really do. I really don't know what they're not seeing here. He's quality. He's got all the makings to be a class midfielder. I do not understand this one. I would love to ask De Zerbi, but everyone sees it differently, I guess. And then moving into Jonathan David, still in France, of course. No pre-contract news just yet, but he did bag his 20th goal in all competition this season with a cheeky little penalty over the weekend. Nice little Panenka up the middle. Other game news, Derek Cornelius kind of killed it against Lyon. He had a very good performance, so we kind of love to see that. Love Derek Cornelius. Hope that he does well. Sadly, he will be losing his fellow Canadian for the rest of this season, but that's the way of the game, I guess. But regardless, he still had a great performance over the weekend. Another big thing is Bayern Munich will be facing Celtic in the Champions League. Why am I saying this, you may ask? I'm saying it because that's Alistair Johnston of Celtic versus Alphonso Davies of Bayern Munich. Now, time will tell if Alphonso Davies is fit enough to play in the matchup, but we will see. I do think it's massive still for Canadian football to have two massive clubs employing two big parts of our national team setup. So I would honestly, nothing against Alphonso Davies. I just think it'd be really cool if we saw a Celtic upset. But obviously, regardless, I think Canadians, unless you're a Bayern fan or a Celtic fan, I think Canadians neutrally are winners regardless of whoever goes through here. But yeah, no, just to make it interesting, let's see Celtic go through. But yeah, obviously Bayern's probably the favorites, but anything can happen. It's Champions League, right? And finally, ending off with women's football, Canada will be building its first ever women's stadium for the NSL. That's massive, I think. I think that's huge. I think that is great. It shows that there is a lot of belief, in my opinion at least. It shows that there's a lot of belief in this league that's going to do very well. And I do think that now more than ever, with everything that's going on, outside of football, we won't get political on the podcast, but with everything that's going on in the world, I think now is the best possible time to get into Canadian football, whether it's the CPL, NSL, both. I think now's a great time to support it. We're all supporting Canadian right now with, like I said, everything that's going on outside of football. So let's all use this as a chance to support inside of football as well. But yeah, I think that's absolutely massive. It's for the Montreal Roses. I just think that's huge, and it's well deserved. I really hope that this league takes off and it does amazing things. So once again, time will tell, as it will with most of the topics I covered in this Maple Start. But yeah, absolutely support these women. They've worked real hard for this, and yeah, just real happy to see that this is happening. So definitely check that out. But with this being said, that concludes our Maple Start. Let's head into the Prem recap. So, as you know, if you are a past listener, we start off with match of the weekend. Then we're going to move into biggest winners of the weekend, biggest underperformers, best performance, moment of the weekend, relegation zone, European places, and title race. And prefacing this right now, Chelsea have not played just yet this weekend. This was the best time that I could record the podcast episode and still get it up in a timely manner. So I'm actually recording this before Chelsea West Ham. So no, there won't most likely be a Chelsea rant this episode, just in case you were looking forward to that. Don't worry, I'm sure that there probably will be one next week. But yeah, no, have not played yet. I do probably think we're going to lose because it just makes so much sense for us to have sacked Graham Potter. He's now manager of West Ham, and it just makes so much sense for him to beat us. It just does. So yeah, bookmark it, I guess. I don't know what to tell you. But yeah, by the time this episode goes up, they will have played. So I'll probably be using some hypotheticals with Chelsea and West Ham when I get to like the end of the episode of like, oh, where could they land? Apologies. This was the best time I could make the podcast recording work. But yeah, anyways, that out the way. Sorry if you were looking forward to a Chelsea rant. Match of the weekend. I actually think it was a pretty good weekend for Premier League football. Some big results, I thought. Still some major upsets. I'm looking at you, United. I'm looking at you, Tottenham. Tottenham won, guys. Tottenham won. That's an upset. Sorry, that's mean. But yeah, no. One of the big matches of the weekend was obviously Nottingham Forest and Brighton and Hove Albion. Who had this predicted that Nottingham Forest last week would have lost 5-0 to Bournemouth and then would have went out the next week and win 7-0? I don't think many people had that on their prediction card like 2 weeks ago, but I guess it was always meant to happen. Very eyebrow-raising result, especially because like Brighton aren't like they're no pushover. They're in the top 10, or they were before the start of this weekend. They are still in 10th place. Like they're not bad. They're only a couple points off of like European places, like Conference League and Europa League. So what happened? I don't know. I don't know if it was just a full-on collapse, if Nottingham Forest went out with a point to prove, but they proved that point if that was the case. We get it, guys. You're good at football. Poor old Brighton was the ones that like was on the receiving end of that. But yeah, I mean, Chris Wood hat-trick, Anthony Elanga gets a hat-trick of assists, Morgan Gibbs-White's in on the fun, Nico Williams in on the fun, Jota Silva's in on the fun. I mean, yeah, there's not a whole ton of talking points from this match just because it was like such a blowout that, what can I really say? Yeah, Nottingham Forest were really good. Brighton were not. Yep, that's about an in-depth analysis, I would say. But yeah, I mean, there's some very nice goals in this match if you want to go check those out. I'm just putting this as match of the weekend just because it's not every day that you see a 7-0, so figured I'd mention that. A match that I actually thought was really well contested, and the scoreline probably doesn't show how, I would say, back and forth it was Liverpool 2-0 against Bournemouth. This is a game that really could have been like a 3-2, 3-3, 4-3. Like, it really felt like it had a lot going on. And like I said, that 2-0 really doesn't feel like it does it justice. But, of course, it is Liverpool that grinds out the result, grinds out the win, and kind of keeps pace with themselves in this title race. And, of course, with other results this weekend, a win here was absolutely crucial. So, obviously, this is what champions do. As I've said multiple times throughout this season, champions grind out results, and that is what Liverpool have been doing. If they will become champions, time will only tell. But yeah, no, I really thought that this was a real good game. There was a couple times Semenyo probably could have had one or two. Kluivert could have had a couple. Tyler Adams, I thought, had a very good game. Howson, of course, I mean, he's been one of the breakout stars of the Premier League this season. To the left of him, Kirkes. I thought they were all really good. Like, this wasn't a Bournemouth going like, oh man, they weren't good. It was just both teams are really good. Liverpool capitalized. Mo Salah stepping up big with a penalty. For my money, of course, we've been pretty vocal about bad reffing on the podcast. Don't think it was a penalty. Regardless, very nicely taken. But that's just kind of the way the game goes. Everyone's on the end of getting maybe some bad calls against them or for them. So this weekend, Liverpool takes advantage of that because we know in the past Liverpool have been the ones at the end of some real bad calls. So definitely, I do think Mo Salah had a very good game. His his goal, like his proper goal, was very nice. Just kind of cuts in, whips it into that far corner. Very nice. You can tell that's a finisher's goal. That's the thing that Mo Salah has always had in his locker, and there's a reason why he's on over 20 goals in the Prem alone this season. Yeah, he's 21 goals in the Prem this season. Yeah, there's a reason for that. He knows where the net is. He's very good when it comes to scoring. I thought Gravenberch, once again, had a quietly good afternoon. McAllister had a very good afternoon. One of the most underrated players in the Premier League this season, I would say, probably. Andy Robertson, Virgil van Dijk, we're rolling back the years. They look great. I say rolling back the years as if Virgil van Dijk hasn't been the best center back in the league this year. Like he has, The only negative I would say for Liverpool on this occasion is that Alexander-Arnold goes out hurt, and that could be a big blow. We obviously don't know the extent of the injury, or at least I haven't seen nothing on the extent of said injury. But yeah, he didn't look too comfortable. It looked like he was grabbing his hamstring. Hopefully, knock on wood, it's not a hamstring, because those can be a pain in the they can be a pain in the hamstring. But yeah, no, that's really the only negative I would say. He wasn't having a great game, so I guess that's kind of two negatives. I would say Liverpool's right side was getting real exploited by Bournemouth's left. Any joy that Bournemouth was having throughout the game came from their left, Liverpool's right. So that felt like a weak spot for Liverpool on the day, whether it was either Alexander-Arnold or even when Connor Bradley came in. I thought it was very much the same, of a lot of struggling to keep up with that Bournemouth left-hand side. But that Bournemouth left-hand side, they're not too easy to keep up with. Like I said, Semenyo and Kirkez, yeah, that's a pretty good left side there. But yeah, no, I think as a competition-wise, high-level Premier League action, I honestly think that this was probably the match of the weekend, just because, yeah, it was just so well contested. And like I said, that 2-0 doesn't do it justice. It really feels like it could have been, like I said, that 3-2, 3-3, 4-3, 4-4. It really feels like it could have been that. Just obviously guys just didn't finish their dinner, and this is what happens. But yeah, no, just two top-class teams going at it. Another big match of the weekend was, of course, it kills me to say this, Arsenal and Man City. I think people probably expected Arsenal to get the win in this one, just with how bad City have been. But I don't think anyone expected 5-1. I really don't. Hey, I could be wrong, and someone may have predicted a 5-1. What do I know? But yeah, no, just City's same problems kind of rearing their ugly head again. Martin Odegaard gets things well underway in the first 2 minutes with a goal. Then Erling Haaland, after halftime, looks like he could be helping the City come back. Then someone scored a minute later for Arsenal. And then Miles Lewis-Skelly scored the third. And then you're thinking, okay, maybe City's going to wake up here. They did not. Kai Havertz, yeah, it kills me to say that. Kai Havertz gets a goal. And then Arsenal puts icing on the cake in the 93rd minute to make it 5-1. What more is there to say about the City woes? We say that there are City woes, of which there definitely are, but they're still well in the top 4 race. If they had won this game, by the way, they would have been 3 points off of Arsenal. Obviously, they didn't, but that just shows, they didn't win for 100 friggin' years, and if they had won on the weekend, they would have been 3 points off of Arsenal. So, we all write City off, but are they really written off? Obviously, I haven't written City off, because every single week I keep saying City feels like they're the team that could turn this around. But I digress. But yeah, no, it kills me to give Arsenal any kind of praise. You probably know that if you've listened to any of my episodes. But yeah, they were quite good on the day. It was kind of shocking to see Arteta kind of keep pumping in some goals, because usually Arsenal gets 1 or 2 and then they sit back, they really defend that lead and then kind of try to see out the game, but not in this case. I think they kind of smell blood and perhaps learn from past mistakes of not going for it, and they go for it. They did go for it, and yeah, it's embarrassing for City, but definitely a big result for Arsenal. So, like I said, kills me, but trying to be unbiased here. Biggest winners of the weekend now. We're going to stick with Arsenal, and we're kind of just going to gloss right past them. And Liverpool, they are definitely biggest winners here, both of them getting big wins against tough opposition in both of their title races. Kind of just glossing with them just because we just talked about them, and there was actually a lot of big results this weekend. So we're kind of going to move past them. Sorry, Liverpool and Arsenal. But yeah, firstly, Wolves, a team that I have been adamant. I'm adamant these guys are staying up. They win against Aston Villa, which is no small feat because Aston Villa, as we all know, have been a very good team this season. But Wolves get a massive, massive 2-0 win over them. And I think that's a pretty big shocker, in my opinion. As someone that has been saying that Wolves will stay up, even I was shocked. Just because, yeah, I mean, Aston Villa, they're a very good side. And Wolves have obviously had their big woes this season, like real big woes. This takes them 2 points out the relegation zone. Obviously, still a lot of season to play. Still 14 games. That's crazy. I say a lot of games, but that's going to fly by. Yeah, 14 games left to play. It looks like there's only one spot left for about 3 teams right now between Ipswich, Leicester, and Wolves to kind of get that one spot of safety. So 2 of those teams will be going down. Just a matter of who. But yeah, I mean, when your other relegation rivals aren't performing well, you need to pick up the points. And with both Leicester and Ipswich losing, and don't worry, we'll talk about them both a little bit later. With them both losing, Wolves had to lock in here, and lock in they did. I think that's a phenomenal performance. They also just re-signed Cunha until 2029, I believe, so that's pretty big. If he stays until then, I highly doubt it. I think this is just a matter of if bids come in now, they're going to have to be a lot more than they were going to be. That's how contracts work in soccer, evidently. But yeah, no, I think it's a massive, I'd say, for Wolves. Another massive shocker, Tottenham Hotspur win a game. Yeah, you and me, we're both shocked, I would say. Giving them this because I think I've put them in underwhelmers of the weekend for like 22 of the 24 weekends that they've played. So we'll give them a win, especially against Brentford. I mean, Brentford's no easy team. Going to Brentford is not easy either. But yeah, I mean, they get an own goal in the 29th minute, and then really nothing of note happens until the 87th when Sarr puts the game to bed, makes it 2-0. And yeah, I mean, you know, this one's really just more so for the joke. But yeah, no, Tottenham, you can have the one of the winners of the weekend spot. Another big winner, I would say, is of course Nottingham Forest. Kind of like Liverpool and Arsenal, not really going to talk about them too much just because I really discussed their game. And then lastly, we are going to give it to Everton. They've looked a team reborn under David Moyes. They should have brought him in at the start of the season, I guess. Maybe they'd be in a title race. You know, kills me because obviously, as we all know, I'm a massive Sean Dyche fan. So to see Everton do so well after letting Dyche go kind of breaks my heart for Sean Dyche. But, you know, what can you do apart from cry? But yeah, no, I mean, 4-0 over Leicester. This really feels like they've saved themselves from the drop. I mean, still a lot of season left to play, but with how inconsistent Wolves, Ipswich, and Leicester have all been, I really don't see any of them making up a 7-point gap on Everton. And then, well, 2 of them having to make up a 7 to 9 point gap on Everton. And then Everton falling into the bottom 3 when those other 3 teams are really fighting for one spot of safety. So I think what my point is, in a convoluted way, my point is that I do think Everton are safe just because, logistically speaking, I don't see 2 of those teams catching and surpassing Everton. I really don't. So, I mean, stranger things have happened, but I doubt it, you know. It was a very good performance from Everton. They really laid Leicester to bed on this one. A big goal in the first minute from Decore, and then Beto scoring 5 minutes later, then right before half as well. Made it 3-0 going into halftime, and then the second half was really just, hey guys, don't mess this up. And mess it up they did not, because they end up getting another goal in the 90th minute, and that's game. And yeah, I mean, they look very good under David Moyes at the moment, so... You know, next year, maybe the title charge is on for Everton. We'll have to wait and see. But we'll move away from the positives. We'll get a little bit negative. Let's talk about some biggest underwhelmers of the weekend. Kind of going to bunch a couple in here together. all kind of for different reasons, but the same reason overall is that because Wolves kind of pulled off a real big result, it meant that both Leicester, Ipswich, and Manchester United all had to pull off real big results in their hunt for survival. No, I'm kidding about United. They're safe, guys. But yeah, Ipswich and sorry, I just killed my own train of thought. Ipswich and Leicester both losing in the fashion of which they did. Like I just said, with Leicester 4-0, never really looked in the game from minute one, quite literally, as they went down 1-0 within the first minute. Never really looked up for it, as they really haven't all season. I've been quite vocal about that. And then Ipswich, I think this is the most embarrassing of the lot, honestly. All due respect to Southampton, as I say every week, but you should not be losing Southampton. Like, I know Ipswich are in the relegation battle, but Southampton, they're already relegated. There's no battle for them. Like, they're done, dude. Like, it is done for them. They have nothing to play for at this point. Like, yes, mathematically speaking, they're not done, but they're done. So for you to lose to them when you needed to win, and this was your easiest game in a real tough run coming up, it's not a good way to kick that little run of games off, because you needed this win. It's not looking good here. Wait, let me pull up their next opponents, because I do remember last episode I went through this and it was not fun. Yeah, so they got Villa, Tottenham, United, Palace, Forest, Bournemouth, Wolves, Chelsea. That takes us into April, guys. That takes us into April. Now, some of those are a bit easier than others. Like, they not trying to be mean, but you could genuinely see them maybe getting something against Tottenham, and then maybe Palace, potentially Wolves. They might do the double against Chelsea again, but yeah, they don't have a good stretch coming into the last 14 games of the season. Like, they really don't. So this was a massive game for them, and they really bottled it, I thought. Especially when you draw a level to go 1-1 and then just see it out from that point, Like, you're going into the 85th minute. Okay, see it out, get the point. It's better than nothing. If something comes up, pounce on that for sure. But no, they give it up in the 87th, and then that's just it. Like, they lose to Southampton. Not good at all. As someone that's been kind of quietly cheering on Ipswich all season, yeah, it's not good. I really don't think it's a good precedent for the rest of their season. Like I just said, very tough run of games coming up. Very, very unlikely I see them getting more than, like 7 points from that run. And even that, I think, is extremely generous, because I don't know. They've pulled off some upsets this season, so anything is possible. But yeah, I really have a tough time believing that. Another underwhelmer I will have to put in Brighton here, as I have already discussed that game. We're just going to say, yeah, you can't really lose 7-0 in the Premier League. So, maybe don't do that again. And then another, I did joke at the start of this, another one would be Manchester United losing 2-0 at home to Crystal Palace is not good. Amarin he's running out of ideas with a lot of outgoings too. Like, okay, Anthony, he's not really much of a loss, like, no offense. But letting Rashford go is questionable, just because, like, I'm not the biggest Marcus Rashford fan, and I don't think he's been the elite player that we've seen him at times this season, but they don't really have anybody else. So I don't really get this refusal to play Marcus Rashford. Like, if Garnacho, okay, fair play, Diallo is having a very good season, but if Garnacho was like firing at the pace that Diallo is, you'd be going, okay, I can see why Rashford's not getting in. By the way, he should still be making the bench. He's not even doing that. And then you look at their strikers, Xerxes and Højlund. Neither one of them set in the world of light. Rashford can play through the middle. Why is he not playing? Why is he not even on the bench? So now you've lost into Villa. Honestly, I do like Rashford, so hopefully he does well there. It just doesn't really make sense to me. It's one of those things where it's like, potentially letting his bias maybe take over a little bit. I don't know. Yeah, I just can't really think of like I said, it's not like Rashford's been great the last couple of seasons, but we have seen that he is capable of doing great things. It just doesn't make sense to me why he's been totally frozen out. But, every coach sees it differently, right? But yeah, no, I think anyway, back onto the actual game here. You can't be losing at home to Crystal Palace 2-0, especially with the weapons well, not really even weapons. With the money that you've spent in comparison to Palace, you really shouldn't be losing to them at home. And the fact that it kind of looked easy for Palace, like really, United, yes, they had some attacks here and there, but the best attacks were from Palace. The best chances created were from Palace. You can't be having that. You just can't. And we're going to stick with Manchester, but we're going to go Manchester City. It continues. It just continues. Everyone but Chelsea get results against Manchester City this year. Of course, as I've been saying all throughout this bad run is, you can't really write City off, but 5-1 is inexcusable. That really is. Obviously, Pep is not going to get sacked or nothing. Like, it's not like, that's cost him his job there. But yeah, you just can't be having that, especially against Arsenal. You're facing off against your protege. Maybe a draw, guys. I don't know. That's just me. They just looked really uninterested, in my opinion. They didn't look great. Now they keep on signing. I think they've made 4 or 5 signings this window. So maybe those guys will come in and do well. But, it's not looking great for Manchester City right now. And yet still they are still very much alive in, at bare minimum, the top 4 race. Next up, we've got performance of the weekend. And I mean, we're just going to say Nottingham Forest as a whole on this one for sure, just because, 7-0. And it's a big rebound from what it was last weekend. But going to shout out 2 players specifically. Chris Wood, of course, gets a hat-trick. Kind of, if you get a hat-trick, it's kind of hard not to put you in the performance of the weekend. And then Anthony Elanga as well gets a hat-trick of assists, which you don't see every day. So yeah, those 2 for sure had great games. And Chris Wood just cannot stop scoring. It's so strange to me that he's peaking at the age of 33. It's just very interesting to me how that just kind of happens out of nowhere. But yeah, no, Anthony Elanga showing the flashes of potential that I think we saw from him early in his career. We're kind of seeing it now come to fruition with Nottingham Forest. So he's having a great season too. Have to put him in the performance of the weekend. Next up, we are going to go to the struggling Wolves, but the man that is not struggling for them at all, Matthias Cunha. I was about to say Cunhas. No, it's Cunha. Newly just signed his deal. I believe that was just made official this morning. I don't know. The days all blend together. It was either today or yesterday that was made official. But yeah, I mean, everything positive for Wolves right now is going through him. They better hope he stays until 2029 because I think they're kind of screwed without him. He's very much their talisman. He's their franchise player, if you will. And, 11 goals, 4 assists in a struggling side is quite good. He's still only 25, I think. Yeah, he's only 25. Still a lot of game. Knock on wood. A lot of game in those legs. So just hitting his prime now. Definitely has hit his prime this season, and this weekend I thought he was absolutely instrumental in them getting their win. Now we're going to go over to the red side of Merseyside, although they played away from home. Not going to go with the goal scorer, guys. I'm very sorry. I'm going to go with their number 4, their captain, Virgil van Dijk. I thought he had a very good game. He looked rock steady at the back, cleaned up a lot, I found. He was very much covering for those around him. Leads by example, is always comfortable on the ball. At the age of, 33? Yeah, at the age of 33, he still looks the best center back in the league. You can tell me that's anybody else. I'm going to tell you I disagree because he is far and away, in my opinion, the best center back in the league, one of the best in the world. But you could still make the argument that he is the best in the world. But yeah, definitely in the league, I would say he's the best right now. And he showed his class this weekend against Bournemouth. If it wasn't for him, really, I think he's one of the reasons that Liverpool kept the clean sheet, in my opinion. While the game was so thick and fast, he was able to kind of bring that level-headedness that you would expect from your skipper, and that's exactly what he did here. He's been phenomenal this year and was phenomenal at the weekend. Moment of the weekend time now. a couple good moments, actually. I will firstly say Everton scoring within the first 45 seconds. That's something you don't see every weekend or every day, so definitely going to have to put that in there. Sorry, Leicester. Sorry. But yeah, no, definitely. I mean, you just don't see that every weekend, so have to put that in there. Chris Wood completing his hat trick. Have to put that in there. Actually, going to go with a Fulham moment of the weekend. 82nd minute, it's 1-1, not for much longer, as Rodrigo Muniz scores to win the game for Fulham. It was a very back-and-forth game, this one, as well. But Fulham, of course, coming out with the win here. And thank you to Andreas Pereira and Muniz, because they really dug Fulham out. I don't want to say dug them out because that makes it seem like they didn't deserve this, but really, really stepped up for Fulham. And it was a great moment for sure. You could see what it meant to the Fulham players, to the traveling Fulham fans. I have to put that up in there. And then another one, I got all these moments for you. Another one is the Southampton win, just because they haven't had much to celebrate this season. You know how much that victory probably meant to their fans, and especially another late winner in the 87th minute. So you kind of have to put this one in here just because it gave Southampton fans something to cheer about this season. But yeah, those will be my moments of the weekend. Let's since we're on Southampton, let's take a look at the relegation zone. Despite Southampton getting the win, they still remain rooted to the bottom of the table, now on 9 points at least. Last bunch of match weeks, it has been just rooted on 6, so they're rooted on 9 now, at least, so that's good. Above them is Ipswich, who Southampton did beat, and as we have said, that's not good for Ipswich at all. Not ideal. Not ideal at all. But on the bright side, Leicester didn't peel too far away from him, as they also lost against Everton. I mean, it wouldn't shock me at this point in the season if these are the three that we see going down. It's a shame. All three teams just came back up. Obviously, there is still time in the season, but yeah, I would say minimum 2 of these 3 are going down. I would say. We can already write off Southampton. That's most likely Ipswich and or Leicester going down. Maybe one of them can drag Wolves into it, and Wolves will go down, because Wolves, as they're in 17th, aren't out the woods at all. Yes, a massive victory over Aston Villa. Don't think many expected that one. Feels like a little bit of a shell shock, especially after Villa had won midweek in the Champions League with such a good game. But yeah, Wolves kind of came in and said, nah. No. Just above, well, not just above Wolves. Above Wolves is Everton. Well above Wolves are Everton. And yeah, from there, you got Everton on 26, and everybody else looks real safe. If I'm being honest, you got Everton, West Ham, Tottenham, United, and Palace. They're all they all look relatively safe, although some of those guys, of course, like United, Tottenham, and West Ham, are severely underperforming this season. I wouldn't say that they're going down. I joke, but they're definitely not going down. Moving into the European places, of course, Fulham kind of getting themselves closer to those Europa Conference, Europa League places. So with that win, Brighton fall down to 10th. Those two just switch spots. Then you got Villa kind of getting stopped, a big roadblock, if you will, as they kind of get shocked by Wolves, as we have discussed in depth this episode. Just above them, though, are Bournemouth, who also dropped points in a great game against Liverpool, might I add. But yeah, Bournemouth kind of don't get to peel away in that aspect. A draw or a win could have really put them a couple points clear of Villa, but Villa still in a coin toss away. Just above them are Chelsea, who, as of recording, are yet to play. Chelsea could return to the top 4 if they do get a win today, or a draw. A draw gets them into top 4 just based on goal difference. A win gets them into top 4. Above Chelsea are Newcastle after that loss against Fulham, and then above Newcastle are Manchester City, who also lost. Are you noticing a theme here? Everybody around Chelsea have lost, and now Chelsea need to win. Chelsea are losing tonight. I'm very confident in that. Do want them to win, of course. But yeah, just former manager coming back that you sacked. He's coming back, and a win would do you good. Everybody around you lost. Yeah, they're losing. They're just losing. I've watched Chelsea for too long to get my hopes up on this one. And then, of course, above Manchester City are Nottingham Forest, who, as we know, won, and they won emphatically. So they're 3 points off of Arsenal in second. But yeah, so Forest kind of teetering in between, like, can we put them in the title race? Can we put them in top 4 race? What race are we putting them in? They're kind of teetering in all of those aspects at the moment. But speaking of title race, let's talk about the title race a little bit. Arsenal, of course, the big win against Manchester City. Yeah, that was pretty massive, I would say. 5-1 against the reigning champs. Let's see what they can do now. Who do they have next? Let me see. So they got Leicester next. You'd probably expect something from there. West Ham. Then Forest would be a difficult game, I would say. Then United, not really. You'd probably expect Arsenal. Then you got Chelsea. Depends on which Chelsea decide to show up for that. So that takes us to mid-March. That's not a bad run of games, honestly. Like you expect most likely Leicester and West Ham for them to get stuff there. Forest could be pretty back and forth, and then United probably figure Arsenal would probably get something from that, and then Chelsea, like, it all depends on which Chelsea shows up. So not a terrible stretch of games, not a great stretch of games, but definitely a very doable stretch of games coming up for Arsenal, building on that 5-1 against Manchester City. Then above them, of course, are Liverpool, still in first place, 56 points, 6 points separate them and Arsenal. But Liverpool, as I say, I think every week, Liverpool have that game in hand, of course, coming against Everton. So won't be an easy one, that's for sure. But let's see who Liverpool have coming up. They have Everton. They have the Everton game next, February 12th. Well, Everton in the Premier League. They have Carabao Cup and FA Cup in between now and then. But yeah, they have Everton next. That's very funny. Then they got Wolves. You probably expect something from that. Manchester City. That would not shock me if Manchester City decides to lock in for that game. Then Newcastle, Southampton. That takes you, and Villa, and that takes you to mid-March, where I kind of ended it with Arsenal. Yeah, so I'd say Liverpool probably have, Liverpool probably have the more difficult of the two, but both of those aren't really easy runs for either team. Yeah, it's going to be very interesting. I will tell you that much. It's been interesting this whole Premier League season. But yeah, I mean, with all that being said, that kind of brings us to an end of this Maple Footy podcast. Forge. Before I forget, Forge FC, they play in the CONCACAF Champions Cup this week at not Tim Hortons Field anymore. They're currently calling it Hamilton Stadium. That is Wednesday. They'll be playing potentially Sergio Ramos. I don't think that we'll see Ramos lace him up, but you never know. And then the day after, Cavalry plays in CONCACAF Champions Cup. So 2 Canadian teams to support there. Whitecaps don't kick off their campaign until the 20th, so they don't even play their first leg, by the way, until Forge and Cavalry have both already played both of their legs. Very funny scheduling there. But yeah, I just want to quickly mention that at the end of the episode. Realized I forgot to mention it in the Maple start. But yeah, so wishing all of our Canadian boys the absolute best of luck as they go out there and hopefully shock CONCACAF. Would love to see it. But yeah, definitely support the Canadian boys. Keep watching the Prem if you're enjoying that. Thank you for listening. As I said at the top of the episode, available everywhere now. You do not just have to listen on YouTube. You can listen literally anywhere you would like. Thank you so much for listening if you have listened this far. And until next time, cheers, everyone.
And that was your Maple Footy podcast. Thank you so much for listening. Check my socials for any and all future updates at Official Sam Little on Instagram, where I am most active. And until next time, live, laugh, little.